All right, let's take a look at the next Candlekeep mystery. This one right here is for 4th level characters, and it's called Shemshime's Bedtime Rhyme. Now, this is kind of a funny little adventure right here. Basically, what happens, the players get cursed, where they can't get this rhyme out of their head, and others who hear it get the same curse, and it starts to spread. And actually, what happens as a certain number of people start to hum this rhyme and such, it summons this evil undead individual named Shemshime. So the players are going to have to figure out how to get rid of this curse and destroy this individual. That's largely what it's about. So they tell you that this book's been at Candlekeep for about 600 years, was brought here by this insane person who had this singing madness. And of course, they're going to figure out what that was all about as this book gets exposed to individuals. So they tell you that all of this adventure takes place in the Firefly cellar. The basement here is beneath the House of Rest, one of these places where the characters can find lodging of such. So they tell you that all the lamps here are lit up by fireflies, and there's actually a caretaker for all these fireflies. They're going to look at a little bit further along. But after the players spend the night here, and they're going to tell you how that works a little bit further along, they wake up the next morning and everybody's humming this same tune, and they can't stop doing it. So like if you ever got a song hung in your head, that's basically what's happening, but it's a curse. And it's going to actually summon this undead. Now here's a picture of the book, and it's a really different, unusual book. It's wood and copper, and in the spine of it, it's got a music box. And when it's opened, you don't have the regular paper pages as you usually see in a book. It's got these pop-ups that shows these scenes. And these scenes are going to give a key as to what's happened to other people and how to get rid of this undead. So again, they tell you this adventure is built around the characters being quarantined. Right at the beginning, somebody's going to recognize that a curse is spreading, and they're going to lock them down in this basement area. So while they're all locked down here together and with some other individuals, they got to figure out what to do about this curse. So as you can see here, there's 6 major events that are going to happen. First, the quarantine. They're going to get locked in here all together with some other individuals. One of them's going to have an outburst right here, and creepy things start to happen. They got a little table where you can roll a D6 to see what'll happen there. They're going to find this singing skull, which are the cursed remains of the individual who brought the book here. So I guess even in death, this curse remains with them. One of the individuals trapped is going to try to escape, and if they do, they're going to spread this throughout the library. The DM could make this into a very big deal if they wanted. Sooner or later, the individuals of the group are eventually going to start to become puppets of this evil undead and turn on each other and start to attack each other. And then lastly, they're going to have to confront Shemshime. And there's actually a very particular way to kill him. They're going to look at this crushing way to kill him and how that works further. So here's a picture of the rhyme right here, and you can see there's a verse at the top, one here, and a third. And there's actually a 4th one that's missing that's the key to getting rid of him. If characters just attack Shemshine in the traditional way, every time they take him down to 0, he pops back to 1 hit point. So they won't be able to kill him as they would think. They've got to crush him. So they're going to tell you how this crushing works and how this 4th part that's missing gives them a clue as to what to do further along. So finding the book, this caretaker named Crinkle, who is a Kinku, actually has it here at the beginning. They tell you the little book description. Again, we looked at it in the previous picture, wood and copper. It's got the music box in the spine. And again, when you open it, it's not regular pages, but a pop-up with different little illustrations that are actually animated. So they tell you it's a clockwork device, and there's 4 separate scenes as the music box plays along. Well, again, one of the scenes right here has been damaged, and so is the music box. We're going to see how that works. So they tell you when you look at the scenes, one of them shows a mother chopping the feet and an ear off her husband, right? Not too nice. The family dog bites off the mother's hand. The son drowns in a river while washing clothes. And in the final scene that doesn't play out until the music box has been repaired, they're going to show you how individuals can do that with a little dexterity check further along. But once they repair it, it'll show the daughter of the group here defeating the shadow by crushing it under a millstone. Crushing is how you kill this guy. So they're going to have some options available to the players to do this further along. So they mention a background on the family. Basically, this Shemshine came along and found them, and all of a sudden an accident started to occur. And of course, it was actually him killing the individuals of the family. Well, this story was told in this area, and a traveling bard who was a gnome heard of it. He decided to create this book to tell the story of what this rhyme was all about. Well, the gnome didn't know it, but what he was actually doing was creating a conduit through which Shemshime could return. Again, when the individuals start to hum this little rhyme, it's actually like a summoning spell for him. So they tell you there was a shipwreck, and in the debris is where somebody found this book, and of course it eventually made its way to Candlekeep. So they mention Kinku here, this individual named Crinkle, who loves the books and collecting things. And they found this very unusual music box-like book, irresistible. And Crinkle has brought it back to her room. They got a map that shows F11 and everything else a little bit further along. So they tell you this is going to start to play. And until that music box is repaired, the song will never complete itself. You'll get the first three parts, but not the last one, where it actually shows and talks about the daughter killing this spirit by crushing him under a millstone. So that's key to solving this adventure, getting rid of the curse. So it's Shemshime's curse right here. It's always a bit of a tongue twister. Shemshime right there. After the individuals stay in this inn for one night, they're going to wake up the next morning and they'll figure out they can't stop humming it. They're going to figure out they're cursed. So they're going to talk about ways to resist the rhyme right down here below. But again, as individuals hum or sing this song, it is a ritual that summons this undead. When enough people join in and enough time goes by, his power grows. And they're going to show you some things that start to happen with a D6 roll further along. But let's say the characters want to resist humming this rhyme. Well, they'll tell you doing so requires concentration, like when somebody casts a spell. So that could definitely mess with the spellcasters. A silent spell or something similar to that could negate the effects in a particular area where the spell is at. A remove curse will work, but the individuals can be cursed again. So it's not a permanent thing right there if that's cast on somebody. And if they cast a remove curse on the book, well, that'll suppress it for 10 minutes. So this sort of gives them some tools to work with, but not a lot. So who are the inhabitants of the cellar that the player characters get trapped down here with? They mention Veneer right here, a sun elf scribe. They tell you a little bit of background information on each one. They mention looks like Ebder, looks like a lawful good human scribe, another individual they get trapped down here with. And some of these individuals do strange things as they start to go crazy from humming this rhyme nonstop. Here's the individual Crinkle. This individual is sort of a caretaker for all the fireflies in the area. So that's why they show that light on the little pole right here. You can see there's a human child. There's another individual down here. It looks like Cthulhu, a Tabaxi scholar. And they give you a little information on that person right here. Too. It's a druid and so on. And then there's Crinkle right here, the caretaker of the fireflies. So you get some information on each one of those. So starting the adventure. Now again, all this takes place in the Firefly Cellar beneath the House of Rest. So they tell you there's a couple of reasons you get the individuals to stay here. So why would the party end up staying in this cellar? Well, they offer a good explanation. When the players look for a place to stay, tell them that all the rooms available are all booked up except for the ones here. I think that's the best way to get them into the area. So that's one of the recommendations at the bottom, and I think that's a pretty good one right there. Now later on they're going to talk about these areas like F1 has a hatch in the ceiling and so on down the line. But they'll wander around this area and meet some of these individuals. Like they mentioned one up here, an elf named Veneer. And they give you a little box you can read out to them. And the individual asks them, hey, would you help me deliver these books? So when they help deliver the books, if they do, or just maybe they don't, and the individual's kind and friendly, whatever the DM needs to do to just keep the thing moving right here. Keep all these sequence of events going. The individuals, the player characters, are offered free room and board if they help the person out up here or whatever you come up with. Maybe they pay for their lodging. Doesn't matter. They just need to stay here overnight. So that's key to getting all this started. So again, when they wake up in the morning, they're going to realize something's wrong. Everybody's humming the same melody. And again, as DM, I would make photocopies of those first three verses of the rhyme that were on that previous page and hand it to them and say, start humming this. You feel compelled to do so and you just can't quit doing it. And again, what they're actually doing unknowingly is humming this summoning spell to bring Shemshime back, who is very evil. Now this is going to start to spread to the other individuals around them. Some of these other characters around them who are NPCs are going to ask them to stop, and they'll figure out they can't do it. Then these other individuals who asked them to stop, they won't be able to stop. And then one of them is going to close this hatch. There's a hatch that leads down to this area. And they're going to lock it shut because they realize the individuals have been cursed. All of them who are down there and who have heard this little maddening tune. So anybody who's been at Candlekeep for a long time will have heard of this ancient singing madness that happened 600 years ago. And of course, to keep it from spreading, they're going to lock everybody in the cellar. It's just like if everybody had a contagious disease. That's the general idea. So again, they remind you that concentration and a few other things can allow them to resist, but it's just going to stay stuck in their head, and it's just going to be a constant nuisance. So they talk about talking to the residents right here, and they give you a little background information on each one and how they might react. Of course, DM can change that up any way he or she wants right there too. They tell you that if somebody decides they want to get out of this hatch, the individual's not going to just give them the key. They might could forcibly take it, or they could beat away the hatch, so they give you an AC and some hit points. They might be able to use some thieves' tools to pick their way out of it right there. And then they actually show this D6 table just a little bit early. On the next page, they'll tell you that once half the individuals in the cellar, half or more of them, start to get afflicted with this curse and hum this tune, you're going to want to periodically roll a D6 for this table, and things are going to start to happen because, again, what's happening, Shemshime is coming back. So they tell you right here, on a roll of a 1, the fireflies flicker out. With a 2, books fly off the shelves. The library may get colder. Shadows appear and attack. Shemshime takes the appearance of the worst nightmare of one of the individuals and starts to do psychic damage. Or they tell you down here below, one of the individuals of the group might be damaged and then attack other individuals. So crazy things start to happen. They also mention they might be able to get out of here with a little knock spell. So again, they're isolated. They're all trapped down here because they want to keep this curse where it's at in this room with these individuals, and they definitely don't want it throughout the library. This could really get out of control. And if the individuals of the group insist on leaving, the DM will have to figure out a way to play it out through the entire library, because this really just talks about how things play out in this cellar. So the DM, if you let them out one way or another, it's going to be up to you to really expand on this adventure. All right, so after they're trapped down here for a while, there's event 2. This individual, Ebder here, sort of yells. They tell you there's a shrill sound, and you hear Ebder's voice. They tell you his eyes are bulging. He appears to be paralyzed, and he's cold to the touch. This individual right here is really starting to freak out from this maddening tune. They tell you that Shemshime's influence has begun to reach into the world at this time. So when Ebder stops singing, roll on that table we just saw on the previous page. So here's where those D6 rolls start to occur. They talk about haunting occurrences. Anytime at least half the characters are singing, roll on the table again. So remember, some of them might be able to concentrate and stop for a while. They might be able to do a remove curse, but once it starts back up and at least half of them are humming, roll a D6 once again. Event 3. They're going to actually come across a singing skull. They tell you with this little box that they're going to hear a voice, and they don't know where it's coming from. Well, it's actually the skull of the individual who first brought this curse here. So there's nothing too special about this right here, but they tell you the skull continues to sing unless it's destroyed or Shemshime is trapped back in his book. And they're going to tell you how to do that further along. So event 4, the escape attempt. So you got this individual, looks like Cthulhu right here, reaches the end of her patience, and she decides she's got to get out of this place. So again, that's the escape attempt right there. And if this individual gets out, they're going to spread this all throughout the library. So hopefully the characters will do something to keep this individual here. So this Cthulhu runs for the hatch right here and tries to force the door. She'll even attack this individual, looks like Vernier, to get the key if that's what she needs to do. Now they tell you the player characters might be able to calm this individual with a charisma check or a calm emotion spell, or this Cthulhu individual actually has a mechanical oyster in her quarters that'll help. So they're going to look at these areas like F13 a little bit further along. Now eventually, as individuals hum and things escalate, members of the party and some of these other NPCs are going to start to become puppets of this evil individual. So that's where event 5 is at right here. They tell you that with one or more of these individuals, your muscles twitch and they can feel something yanking on them like invisible strings. There's the puppet part right there. They tell you that Crinkle and this other individual, Galby, flee to Crinkle's room, and you can actually find them there later, unless they've been removed, come out, or something such as that. So they tell you at this time, those who are not under the effect of a protection from evil/good spell or similar magic are going to have to make a DC 15 charisma saving throw or be charmed by Shemshime for 1 minute. At that time, they're going to be singing because that's what Shemshime wants them to do, because the more people singing brings Shemshime out into this world quicker. They're going to try to cause physical harm to others at the same time. So they're going to be humming and attacking is basically what's going to happen if they fail that roll. If a bunch of people in the group fail, well, this could go bad real fast. Now, they tell you that the control over a creature is broken by a break enchantment effect from a dispel/evil, as we mentioned before, or reducing the creature to 0 hit points. And a charmed creature can repeat their saving throw at the end of their turn. So they could break this with that DC 15 charisma saving throw. And once they do break free of it, it'll be 24 hours before Shemshime could take over them again. So there could be a lot of nasty fighting going on in that section there. And here's a great picture of the inside of that pop-up book. Again, as always, you got to give them great credit for the artwork. Here's the wife cutting the legs off the husband. There's the dog biting off her hand. Remember, these were things described in the verses earlier in the book. Here's the son drowning. And again, not until they repair this book are they going to hear and see the last verse that talks about the daughter crushing Shemshime under this millstone. You got to crush this undead if you want to get rid of him. That's a key. So they're going to have to figure this out. So event 6, right? Shemshime eventually is going to be back with them. So the final event right here revolves around interacting with the book and learning that last part of the rhyme. This has not been revealed to them. Remember back previously, just the first 3 parts to that rhyme are all that they know up to this point. That last part, again, the little girl crushing Shemshime, tells them how to get rid of this guy and end the curse. If they can figure out a way to crush him, it's going to trap him back in the book, stop all the humming, and end the curse, long as nobody opens the thing back up again. So they tell you with event 6 right here, he's going to eventually appear, and he's going to start to lash out at the characters here. So they tell you at this time the book is probably in Galby's possession. So this is the book that everybody needs to get this undead back into. They're going to tell you she's reluctant to share the truth, admits that she's knocked Crinkle unconscious with it. They tell you she's sort of covered in blood right here at this point. Repairing the music box. If the players are ever going to see that last part right up here of this girl crushing this undead and hear the fourth verse that tells them what to do, they've got to repair it. Well, they tell you this thing's been broken for centuries, so what do they need to do, right? This thing's going to keep skipping from 1 to 2 to 3, back to verse 1, 2, 3, and over and over and over. Well, they tell you with a DC 15 intel check, somebody will notice there's a brass cylinder that's sitting askew. Now, how do they repair this brass cylinder? It's going to take 3 consecutive DC 15 dexterity checks. Now, multiple characters can all work together. So 3 players in the party could actually roll 3 15s or better all in one round and repair this thing. But again, you got to have 3 consecutive, not 3 total. That's sort of a trick to it right there. So they tell you that when they try to fix the box, Shemshime's going to sort of up the attacks right here. They're going to hear his maddening whispers, and they're going to have to roll a DC 13 intel saving throw or take 4d6 psychic damage on a failed save, half on a successful. So he's trying to kill him. He doesn't want him to repair this box. Once fixed, the box plays its tune to the end. So that's what they need to hear. They need to see and hear the last part of this little rhyme. So the scene played out in the book continues just as the music does. So they'll get to see and hear the last part. That's where they see Shemshime being crushed under the millstone. That's the only way to get rid of this guy. Normal attacks and such will take him to 0, but he just pops back to 1. So they got to figure out a way to crush him. And they're going to tell you how to do that, some options further along. So here's the confrontation. They'll tell you that singing the final stanza draws Shemshime into the room. The book trembles, and until it squeals and screeches to a halt. The scenes inside the book now change, so you're not going to see the same scenes that we saw on that previous page. They tell you that new pictures are going to appear with the individuals of the party, the NPCs, and the rooms around them. So it's no longer the mother killing the husband by chopping his legs off. You're not going to see the dog biting off her hand. You're going to see the players and scenes from the rooms around them. So there they give you the little stats on Shemshime. And notice again, you've got to crush this individual with an object that weighs 1,000 pounds or more. Other than that, they take him down to 0. He just pops right back up to 1. So, of course, here is attacks and stuff that, of course, you'll need to take note of. And there he is up there. It looks sort of like a shadow. And he is an evil undead. So how are you going to get rid of Shemshime in this book? Destroying the book itself won't do anything to defeat him or really harm him in any way. If you want to defeat him, you got to crush him. So they tell you that in different areas, and they've got a map that shows these rooms here in just a second. In F1, there's a sculpture suspended from the ceiling. It's heavy enough to crush him. The bookcases in F1 and F2 are heavy enough, and there's a stone table also that would be of help. So how are you going to get him into this area if these objects are so heavy? You don't have to actually move the objects and use them as a weapon. But like with this sculpture, the bookcases, they tell you that Shemshime will always follow that book. So use it to lure him where you want, and then drop or push over a bookcase on him. That's how you're going to crush the guy. So if you can get him to the right location, drop one of these heavy objects on him, he's got to make a DC 15 dex save. Now notice right here, he's got to make this save to avoid being crushed. On a failed save, he vanishes, and one of two things will happen. If the book is still present, in other words, nobody destroyed it, he'll be yanked back into the book, it slams shut, and the curse ends. So they succeeded. If the book has been destroyed, the nearest closed book will transform into a new copy of Shemshime's rhyme, and that book will then become his new little prison. So again, he's going to be trapped. They tell you that Vernier right here, or whoever has the key to the hatch right here, is going to let everybody out, take the book to a secure vault, and lock it away. That way this can't happen again. And they tell you right here that the Avowed will be very thankful if the creatures can get Shemshime back in his book and remove this curse. And as a reward, they'll give him a bag of holding. So a nice little extra right there. But they talk about down here some troubleshooting. Again, if the players and such leave this confined basement that they're in, this could spread throughout Candlekeep, and the DM will have to sort of figure out what he or she wants to do from that point. This could really get crazy, so you may want to keep them locked in this area. But then they give you a map and talk about the locations that they can wander around in down in the cellar. They're not trapped in one room or one floor. They can move about. So again, they mention it has 3 floors, and they talk about the stacks at F1. Where there's also a balcony, there's bookcases and books. And again, a big bookcase full of books can be used as a large crushing item to kill this undead. So there's your map right there. Not a whole lot to it. And they mention these other areas. And they talk about areas where you can find very heavy objects, like this one here that weighs 1,500 pounds. Again, they see something that's very heavy. Bring Shemshime's book. Get him to follow the book. When he's in the right location, drop these heavy objects on him right there. So they talk about this stuff. There's the stacks and such where you got these books and whatever. There's a scriptorium. They tell you there's some writing on the wall that has the first 3, lyrics of the rhyme, except for the final. Yes, the first 3 stanzas are there. In this F4, they might see this writing on the floor if they roll a wisdom check that says finish the rhyme. So if they're having trouble figuring out what to do, you may want to have that appear somewhere else where somebody sees it and, push them along if they get bogged down. That's what that's all about there. They tell you there's this little secret compartment where there's a pile of bones that actually contains the remains of the person who first brought this book here. So they tell you there's a little bindery, a repair area for books. And they can see that there's a little repair note that talks about repairing Shemshime's rhyme but that book is no longer here, right? Obviously, the little Kinku must have taken it from this area. There's a little small tunnel right there, a kitchen, some sleeping quarters. They tell you there's some creepy pictures that somebody drew in one of them right there. Nothing special about it. There's Ebder's room, Crinkle's room. An individual may still be in here slumped on the floor. They talked about them running towards this area earlier along. There's a few little items, not much. The bag of holding is the real treasure if they figure out how to get rid of this. And then again, they mention how there's candlesticks with continual light spells in some of the areas and so on down the line. So that's the end of it. Just gives you a little idea of where they can go on this map right here, a little brief description. So remember the 6 different events that have to occur, and the only way to get rid of this guy is to crush him. So I hope you have some fun with this one here. If you run this one, let me know how it goes by making a note down below. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.